Good morning, friends. I'm Pastor Lorri Landon from First UMC in Kirksville, and it is good to share this time together with you on this Friday morning in November. Whether you're watching live at 9:30 or at another time during the day, I'm so glad that you have joined together today. We're continuing this month to explore the wisdom that Jesus offers in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, called the Beatitudes. They invite us into a way of living that is often very different from our natural first instincts. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice and righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. We've talked about some of the ways Jesus modeled for us, these ways of trust, lament, humility, justice, compassion, and right motive, and we've looked at some of the ways we can put these into practice in our own lives. Now, today's beatitude honestly can be a challenging one. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Now, one of our most basic human needs is for safety. And so our first instinct is to draw close to those who are like us and to pull away from those who are different. We tend to divide the world into us and them in all sorts of ways: skin color and religion, style of dress, age, class, occupation, just about any way you can think of. Humans tend to split people up. Now, in his teaching on the hill, Jesus urged people not to remain in that very natural place of drawing close to those who are like you. But he urged us all to become peacemakers who understand that we are all children of God. We're all members of one human family. And because of this, we belong to one another. We belong to God's one family. And the invitation to be a peacemaker is to recognize this, to search for common ground, and to work toward a common good. Now, Jesus embodied this in all areas of his life. The disciples that he called to follow, they came from very different backgrounds, and in some ways they probably could have been described as complete opposites of one another. Jesus associated with people that others shunned. He was criticized for eating with tax collectors and those that others called sinners. He welcomed children, whom the disciples thought were getting in the way of the adults. Roman soldiers, foreign women, people with contagious diseases, whoever it was, Jesus reached across all of the us and them dividing lines of his time. And he saw each person that he encountered as someone loved by God and worthy of compassion and respect. And when Jesus' disciples followed their natural instincts to try to divide up and see who was more important, Jesus reminded them to be at peace with each other. And so we too are invited to follow the way of Jesus as a peacemaker, because we are all children of God. So how can we do this? One of the best places might be to begin in our closest relationships. Anytime we have close relationships, as wonderful as they are, there are tensions that arise. Sometimes we catch those and we make them right early on, but other times we don't, and they fester. There was an old show, Everybody Loves Raymond, and there was an episode about a suitcase on the stairs that neither the husband or the wife would unpack. And it remained that way for weeks, and there was cheese in it, and it started to smell. And this tension just became a horrible issue in their relationship. It was, of course, the laughing point of the episode. But we can probably all think of relationships where there's some tension that hasn't been dealt with yet. Sometimes we know that because when we're around that person or we hear their name, we get kind of a tension in our stomachs. And our bodies let us know that there's something that hasn't been dealt with. There's tension there that hasn't been resolved. And so we might need to reach out, to reconnect, and we might need to reconcile, to give an apology or make amends through some kind of tangible action. That can be an important step to being a peacemaker. Every week we ask the question, how is it with your soul? And sometimes we may wish we could answer that our soul was at peace. But if there's a sense of discontent or tension, it might be because there's a relationship where we need to practice peacemaking. Now, another way to practice peacemaking is to cross some of those boundaries that are in place. Learning more about what you have in common with people that might normally be divided into us and them can be a good place to start. Right after high school, I had the opportunity to experience this as an exchange student in Indonesia. I lived with a Muslim family in one of the largest cities there, and at first it didn't seem like a Midwestern girl from a small rural area would have much in common with my host family and my classmates. But over time, we realized there was a whole lot that connected us. And that experience has shaped my reaction anytime I hear about someone who is Muslim, because the images of those that I shared meals with and spent hours in conversation, those come to mind. I remember that, like the people I knew, they were doing their best to try to care for their families, to make the world a better place in their communities, and follow God. Sometimes being a peacemaker means to focus on the hopes and joys and questions and sorrows that we share in common. Even while we understand that there are real differences in the ways that we view the world, but when there are, if we can avoid the labels and stereotypes that really divide us at the outset, that can be helpful. Listening to these other perspectives, having the courage to seek peace when conflict arises, these are all ways to practice peace. And this beatitude, it invites us to move from dividing to embracing. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So friends, as we go into these days ahead with whatever they bring, may we listen. May we reach past our differences. May we embrace one another as family. And may we follow Jesus in the way of peacemaking. We say this every week. Go in peace. We'll see you next week.